Hello everybody and welcome back to the Awesome Walter YouTube channel. Thank you for sticking with me here, folks. It's been a very, very long time since I posted on here, I know. So I wanted to at least talk about WrestleMania. There are a lot of reasons why I haven't been posting lately, and a lot of things have changed since the last time I posted on here, but we'll get into that maybe at the end of this review. But let's just talk about WrestleMania. So this is WrestleMania 35, and they don't have the numbers under the WrestleMania logo anymore. This took place in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, or as WWE likes to say, the shadow of New York City. Their home was invaded by another show at Madison Square Garden on, I believe, Saturday. So there's a lot of buzz about that show and everything. So that was pretty cool from the things that I've heard about. But in terms of WrestleMania, let's just go through it all. I saw almost everything. I just missed, I think, one pre-show match. So I got the results right here. I'm going to scroll through them and give you my thoughts. And you could let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Also, if you're not following me on Twitter, it's at awesome_Walter on there, and I live tweet a lot of the bigger events for WWE, like the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And it was a lot of fun interacting with you guys on there. So let's get into the card here. By the way, the show is super freaking long. What time is it right now? It's 12:17 a.m. right now. The show went off the air about 45 minutes ago. It was about 11:30 exactly when that show went off the air for Central Standard Time here in Chicago. So it was a long time sitting there to watch some wrestling. So for the pre-show, or the kickoff show as they like to call it, the Cruiserweight Championship was on the line with Tony Nese defeating Buddy Murphy via pinfall. So I was just kind of getting stuff ready. I had my cousin Alex over on here, who is usually in these reviews with me, but he had to go because it's so freaking late and he has work tomorrow. So it's just me talking about it. So I just saw a little bit of this. It looked all right, but there's still filling people in there. It didn't look like anything crazy great. So you're going to have to let me know what you guys thought of this match in the comments. But it seemed all right. The second match here was Carmella winning the Women's Battle Royal. This was kind of confusing. So, I think a lot of stuff has been said about how WWE has treated Asuka's character in terms of her losing even going further back than that at the Royal Rumble. She made Becky Lynch tap out clean. And won the SmackDown Women's Championship. So, yeah, man, that was kind of a weird angle to go with her after that, with her not being on TV at all and not, doing anything of note with her leading into WrestleMania, and then having Charlotte defeat her on SmackDown just a week or 2 weeks before WrestleMania. And she was relegated to the Women's Battle Royal, and I think a lot of people thought that she was going to go over in this match, but that didn't happen. Sarah Logan eliminated her, and we thought Sarah Logan won, but lo and behold, Carmella pulled the old switcheroo, was underneath the ring and came out, and I guess it's not the switcheroo because not switching with anybody, but you know what I mean. She was hiding and came out and eliminated Sarah Logan, and Carmella won the Battle Royal. So, cool, I guess. This was nothing of note. It was okay, whatever. Just disappointed in what they've done with Asuka is the main thing I took away from this one here. I was very into this, and so was the crowd there. The Raw Tag Team Championships, Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, the former Major Brothers who have been reteaming as of late, defeated the Revival via pinfall to win the Raw Tag Team Championship. So the match was pretty decent. It wasn't anything like crazy great, but it was pretty decent. And, the story that they built up into this was that not Zack Ryder, it was Kurt Hawkins, who has been on the 236 losing streak or something like that, or 269 match losing streak. That's a lot of losses in a row, and they built this up into a storyline, and I know Hawkins probably pushed for that, and reteaming with Ryder, I think, kind of reinvigorated whatever interest that maybe the WWE had in him in terms of, I know that they don't love Zack Ryder for some reason. I still don't understand it because I'm a big Zack Ryder fan, and I think a lot of people are, but the WWE creative team or whoever is running the show, Vince back there, just don't seem to like him very much. Don't give him a lot of TV time. But when he teams back up with Kurt Hawkins, that gave them both something to do. And they were reteaming on Raw and stuff. And, they lost a lot, so they didn't really deserve a championship match at all. And I know that the Revival might be leaving WWE pretty soon here. But the match, like I said, was okay, and the finish was all worth it. The crowd was very into this. They were chanting for Hawkins. I think he got the winning pinfall on that, and the place, didn't quite erupt crazy like it did later in the night, but people were into this, and they were very happy to see Hawkins and Ryder win the Raw Tag Team Championships. So this gets a thumbs up for me. I really liked the outcome here, and the match was pretty good. So that was a highlight for the kickoff show for me personally. Then Braun Strowman wins the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I had to go pick up food at this part, and they were late in putting together the food, so I missed the ending of the match. But I did see some of the entrances. They had Michael Che and Colin Jost from SNL out there, I've seen a couple of their segments on Raw, and I'm just kind of wondering why they wanted... Well, not why they wanted to be involved, but, the way they were used is kind of freaking weird. Braun Strowman came out and, Hulk Hogan his shirt, whatever you want to call it, the tee that he was wearing. So he was in really good shape, in the best shape that I've ever seen him. So that was something of note. The Hardy Boys came out to some really old school gear, especially for Matt Hardy. Reminded me of their late 90s, early 2000s look. So that was cool. They played their theme song for a really, really long time. When they were coming out there. So cool. I didn't see the ending of the match, like I said, but I know that Braun Strowman won. Not a surprise, not a shock at all. Whatever. Let me know what you guys thought of this below. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal is not really that important, as we know. So, alright, the WWE has not made it that important as maybe it should be. So, the main show, I believe, started right after this. And Alexa Bliss came out and introduced Hulk Hogan. I used to be a huge Hulk Hogan fan. I was a Hulkamaniac, man. Back when he made his big comeback to WWE in 2002 with the NWO and then turned back to the red and yellow and everything, I was a massive Hulk Hogan fan. Unfortunately, since then, a lot of stuff has come out about him, and, we don't have to go into all the scandals and stuff that have plagued his career and life over the past decade. But I'm not as big of a Hulk Hogan fan as I once was, so seeing him here didn't do much for me. They wanted a big name to come out there. Rock probably wasn't available. Austin probably didn't want to do it. So they got Hogan. And it's a nice moment for the crowd. It's cool. He made a little reference to the last time he was there, how he made a mistake and called the Superdome the Silver Dome. But then he said it's at MetLife Stadium. And he said here at the MetLife Center. So did he do that on purpose? I don't think he did. So Hogan's getting older. It happens. It was a nice moment for the crowd. So that was an interesting way to kick off the show. So the first match here was a little shocking. By the way, if I'm stuttering a little bit more than usual, or if my voice is going in and out, that's because it's very late. I'm tired. The Universal Championship, Seth Rollins defeating Brock Lesnar via pinfall to win the title. So right after the thing with Hogan and Alexa Bliss, Paul Heyman comes storming out with his very unique walk, second only maybe to Vince McMahon's walk. He came to the ring and said that if it's not the last match, we want to get this done and get out of here. So Lesnar came out, Rollins came out. They had their very short match. There was an F5 on the outside before the match even started, before the bell rang. And that gave me shades of WrestleMania 25 with Triple H and Randy Orton, where there's a pedigree or an RKO. There was finishers in the first 30 seconds of that match. But that was the main event. This was the WWE Universal Championship curtain jerking here. So interesting decision that they went with this. But this card was so stacked. Maybe this was best, for the night. In the end, Rollins won with 3 curb stomps in a row, I think. I'm glad that Rollins has the title. Rollins has been deserving of the championship for a really long time now. He was on a hot streak over, it was a few months ago. It was sometime last year when he had the Intercontinental Championship, and he was lighting crowds on fire, having these amazing matches. And that was the time I really think they should have pushed for him to go for the title, but I think they went with Reigns instead, where Reigns originally beat Lesnar for the Universal Championship. So Rollins definitely cooled off since then, but he's still obviously a great talent, and the crowd is still into him. Maybe just not as crazy for him as they were last year, but still, it's great to have a champion that's going to be around now. Everyone said this over and over and over again, so I won't, dwell on this for too much longer, but it's just great to have a world champion or universal champion, whatever, that's on the main show. Raw is the A show, whether you like it or not. And it's cool to have the champion on Raw again. So there you go. After that, I believe we had AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. AJ won. This was a good match. Nothing incredibly great, I guess. It was a really good match for what these two have built up, which I guess have had some pretty good promos on SmackDown. I haven't been able to see most of them, but it was a decent build up from what I hear, and the match itself was pretty good. Maybe if they had more time or something, they could have pulled out a couple more stops, but they teased like the counter into the RKO several times. I think they actually did it on SmackDown, so they did a little bit early, so maybe you wouldn't expect it on WrestleMania, but AJ won with the phenomenal forearm with a pretty good match. It was a good match, entertaining match. Orton always steps up in big match situations, and AJ is always going to go out there, obviously, and have an A+ effort, so good match. Decent feud from what I've heard. And moving on from there, we had the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Usos defeated The Bar, Ricochet, and Aleister Black, and Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura to retain their titles, it says here. So this was pretty good. I mean, the Usos obviously are one of the best tag teams. I think it's easy to say now that they're one of the best tag teams in the WWE's entire history. They've had countless match after match after match after match in all different kinds of stipulations and everything like that. Great matches over and over and over again. This was a really good match. It was cool to see Ricochet and Aleister Black in there. And it got Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura on the show. While they're not doing with them what I think a lot of fans want to see, especially from Rusev, at least they had a spot on the show, and this match was pretty cool. Nothing great, but it was kind of great. Nothing like amazing, but still a pretty good match. Okay, this is the one that was stuck out to me the most. So, going up to this far into the show. Shane McMahon defeated The Miz via pinfall in their Falls Count Anywhere match. I mean, defeated him, in quotes, we could say. So I didn't see this one coming, man. I didn't get to follow this story as much as I would have liked to, but I know that Miz was teaming with Shane for a long time. They won the tag team championships. Miz lost. I got pinned twice in a row. I think they lost the titles and then lost the rematch. And Miz's father was involved, which has been an interesting storyline to see play out. And they had Shane turn on Miz, which is a different route for them to go because Shane McMahon is just, everyone loves Shane McMahon. I think, when he first came back a few years ago now, people just went crazy for him. And Shane is a very likable guy. His personality is very likable on TV, and his wrestling style, lends itself to more of a crowd pleaser. So, and Miz is just the most natural heel I've almost ever seen out of anybody. So to have those roles flipped and have Shane turn on Miz was an interesting angle to take on it. And the crowd just ate it up. People really like babyface Miz here, which I'm a little bit surprised by. But, I mean, it worked out really well for this storyline. I know way back when they were planning, I think, on doing Daniel Bryan as a babyface versus The Miz as a heel for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, and that was kind of going to be Bryan's big comeback story. He was going to be chasing for a while and then eventually win the title. They kind of overplayed it by having so many matches early on, and the crowd, I wouldn't say soured on Bryan, but they didn't get into stuff with him as much as I think everyone expected back there in WWE. So they kind of changed things up, but Bryan's been tearing it up as the heel champion over on SmackDown. So things may have worked out for the best. And we never would have gotten KofiMania. We never would have gotten Kofi as the WWE champion, which we'll get into later, without Bryan turning heel. So the Miz versus Shane match, this was Falls Count Anywhere, so they went all over the place, all over the stadium and stuff. So there was a couple really cool spots. Involving Miz's dad was interesting. He put his dukes up there, which is kind of funny. Shane knocked him down. Miz, a big house of fire coming in and knocking Shane around. And then they went outside the ring a lot. And then, the finish, they were up by the scaffolding with the cameras and stuff. And this reminded me of Undertaker and Triple H at WrestleMania 17 or X7, whatever you want to call it. Where they kind of battled to an interestingly similar position where there was a choke slam off of that scaffolding, and then Undertaker did like a big leg drop off of a big drop. But that was like a big crash pad. It was like an inflatable crash pad or something. This was one of those spots that they have sometimes where it's kind of made of tables, but there's also a crash pad under it. It reminds me of when Jeff Hardy did like a giant swanton off the Raw set all those years ago, and it was onto Randy Orton where he rolled out of the way, I think, and it was like this big like crash of like wood, explosion of wood, and a bunch of stuff went into the air. It was kind of like that same thing with this here. So it was a superplex off of this, which was nuts, and looked just great and dangerous. And Miz landed on top of, or Shane landed on top of Miz, and his falls count anywhere. So 1, 2, 3, and that was it. Shane won. Great match, really good match. I mean, considering this is Shane McMahon, who's almost 50 years old, and not a full-time wrestler, and Shane always pulls out the stops when he needs to. Pulled off that shooting star press a few months back, which was really surprising to see, and he hit it perfect. So Shane still has a lot of athletic ability at his age, and he's in phenomenal shape. And Miz always goes in there and knows what he's doing as a heel or apparently as a babyface. So they both did great. This was a highlight for the show. Really enjoyed this one. So, and again, it was great to see Miz's dad incorporated into this here. Next up was the Women's Tag Team Championship. The Iconics defeated Boss and Hug Connection, which is such a weird name. Which, Bayley and Sasha Banks, Beth Phoenix and Natalya, the Divas of Doom, I guess sometimes they're called, and Nia Jax and Tamina to win the tag titles, which I was a little surprised by. I mean, maybe they wanted more heels to go over in the show because, we had the 3 big outcomes that, the baby faces won, as I'm going to get into more as we go along here. But, I kind of wanted Bayley and Sasha to hold on to the titles for a little bit longer. That didn't happen. The Iconics don't do it for me. I mean, they just kind of have go-away heat with me sometimes. I know they're very good at being annoying, but, you need to not make me want to change the channel. And that's kind of what they are to me. But that's just my opinion. I know some people like the Iconics, so we'll see where they go with the tag team titles for the women. But it's cool to see that defended at WrestleMania in any case. Next up, this was the big one. The WWE Championship. Kofi Kingston, KofiMania, of course, with New Day, defeated Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. And man, let me tell you, this was it. This was the highlight of the show, and this was in the middle of it. A lot of people think that this should have gone on last, which I do understand. The main event with the women, it felt like the logical thing to do because of how incredibly over and just popular, insanely popular that Becky Lynch got, and with Ronda Rousey involved and Charlotte and everything, like it felt like the time to do it. But man, no one expected Kofi to catch fire like he did in such a short amount of time. I have always been a big Kofi Kingston fan. I think that he got an unfair shake when he had that main event feud with Randy Orton. It was like 10 years ago now. And of course, we got to get that infamous stupid, line from Randy when there was a messed up RKO spot or something like that. And ever since then, Kofi's just been the good hand, the best mid-card guy maybe that they have at some points, where he won countless Intercontinental championships and United States championships. And then obviously with the New Day, he kind of got new life and won several tag team championships and everything. But as a single competitor, I've always really liked Kofi Kingston. I think obviously the crowd did too, and they would get behind him if they actually did something with him. And, they didn't want to do this with him. It obviously kind of reminded everybody of Daniel Bryan's push leading into WrestleMania 30. And it's ironic that Daniel Bryan was the current heel champion going into a similar situation here. But Kofi, he's always been on my radar. I've always really liked him. I've always wished they would do more with him. And my cousin Alex, too, has thought the same thing, who is always watching wrestling with me. So we've always been big Kofi fans. So to see this happen, the match was great. Probably the match of the night. I think this was probably the match of the night. A great match with him and Daniel Bryan. Bryan, obviously, one of the best in the business today and of the last decade, at least, in WWE. So to see him go out there as he's such a great character. This environmentally friendly evil version of Daniel Bryan with the hemp belt and stuff, just so well done. And his promos are fantastic. I saw one that he cut. It was on social media, so I'm not sure if it was on SmackDown or if it was like on the pre-show or something that I missed. but he cut a great promo about how Kofi does not deserve it, and him calling Kofi a B+ player when that was the whole thing with Daniel Bryan leading into WrestleMania 30, where the Authority just kept calling him a B+ player and going against the wishes of the fans and stuff, was just the perfect ironic twist to the story. And like I said, the match was great. It was so cool to see Big E and Xavier Woods out there cheering him on. And then after, of course, we get the real belt back, the actual current WWE Championship with Kofi's side plates and Kofi's kids coming into the ring. And just, this was the moment. The crowd was going nuts for this. Just off the wall, crazy for Kofi Kingston. KofiMania was in full effect. And man, it was emotional seeing this actually happen. I've been watching wrestling since 2002, 2001, and to see Kofi, who was, in there not too long after I started watching wrestling, and see him finally win a WWE Championship, World Championship, was a really special moment. And there's not too many of those out there anymore. When that kind of thing happens, you gotta grasp onto it and really enjoy the moment. And Kofi obviously did. I did. Everyone I was watching with did. This was the highlight of the show. And yeah, no more words can express how happy I was to see Kofi finally win. So good going, Kofi. Just great stuff. And to see the New Day again out there and his kids at the end just tugged at your heartstrings, man. United States Championship, this is interesting. Samoa Joe defeated Rey Mysterio via submission in this is a really short match. I know that Rey was injured going into this match, unfortunately. He hurt his ankle, I think on SmackDown or on Raw this past week, just right before WrestleMania. And this would have been a great longer match. I mean, Rey Mysterio, obviously one of the best that the WWE has ever had in terms of high flyers, or just, he could work with anybody. And Joe is such an opposite style to him, where he's this big guy who can move around too. He's one of the most unique guys who's been in wrestling, I think, in a very long time. Obviously starting in TNA, that I followed him a long time in there, and seeing him pop up in WWE finally a few years ago. Him and Rey Mysterio is a really cool and interesting matchup, and especially since it's for the U.S. title, that's a cool little extra thing to put on top of it. Unfortunately, Rey was hurt. I think that's why they cut it. But Rey looked great in the opening couple seconds of this. I mean, just in the match only lasted a minute or two. But, Rey was going around in there, jumping around and just doing all the stuff he usually does and looked great. But they ended it really fast with the Coquina Clutch, and that was it. Samoa Joe retained, but at least he finally got onto a WrestleMania. I know he's been hurt, and he hasn't been able to perform on WrestleMania these past a couple of years since he's been in the company, so it was cool to see him actually there. And this was a unfortunate thing that happened, but I'm happy that Joe was on there at least. Maybe we'll get a big rematch down the road a little bit, and we'll see the match that they should have had. Next up, Roman Reigns defeated Drew McIntyre. This was in terms of a match, it was all right. Nothing spectacular, but it was pretty decent. It was just cool to see Roman Reigns back so quick after his leukemia diagnosis, and went through the chemotherapy, and it was the pill form that I heard he took. So it was a pretty quick and effective treatment for him to come back. So it was just great to see him healthy in there and stuff again. The crowd is behind him now, and this is what they've always wanted. So I'm very interested to see what they do with Roman Reigns coming out of this. Mishandling him at this point after they've been finally given what they've wanted all this time, and basically he's on a silver platter, a babyface finally, and everyone likes him. Let's see what happens. Let's see what they do with him going forward. Hopefully he's not shoved down our throats like what was happening and why people didn't like him in the first place. It was never his wrestling ability. It was never really his promos. I think people naturally liked him when he was in the Shield, and they just love, when they got their guy, they just love shoving him down our throats like they did with John Cena. And a very similar situation happened here with Roman Reigns, but I think, even more so with Reigns than with Cena. So we'll see what happens with them coming out of this. Also, Drew McIntyre, a great heel. I think what my cousin Alex also pointed out is that he might have a more stable, or the money might be him more in a babyface. So we'll see what they do with Drew going forward. He's great on the mic. He's great in the ring. He's got a great look. Even though it seems like a lot of the guys in WWE right now have dark, long hair and a beard, they're all Jesus-ing it up right now in WWE. But he still has a unique look. The Scottish aspect to his background and everything, I think, helps. So I'm interested to see what they do with Drew going forward as well. But as for the match, it was okay. Just cool to see Roman win, or Roman back on the grandest stage of them all, the showcase of the immortals, as they say. Now this next thing was pretty freaking awesome. Okay, they had Elias come out and do his usual shtick, but they actually had him on the Elias band where he was playing the drums and he was playing the piano, and then he was in the ring with his guitar and doing his regular thing. It was like, who's going to interrupt him? It's John Cena. But, we've seen this happen before with John Cena interrupting Elias, but this was the Doctor of Thugonomics version of John Cena, the Word Life version of John Cena, and it was freaking awesome. It was so cool. He poked fun at himself, saying that, poking fun at his own movies, the quality of his own movies, just tore Elias apart. Gave him an FU, not an AA. With FU is what the move was called before WWE went PG or whatever. So, yeah, this is pretty great to see Cena come out and do this again. Man, I got to tell you, it kind of depresses me because Cena, I don't like, again, it's sort of the same thing as Roman Reigns situation where Cena was shoved down our throats for so many years and beat everybody and, stopped a lot of guys who probably should have went further than they did because they just hit this brick wall that was John Cena. And I think that there's so much more of a depth to him that we were able to see for a long time because he was just the babyface superhero and wasn't allowed to do anything. It didn't have to be this exact character, which is just a big throwback to his earlier days in the WWE, but there's a harder edge to Cena, and there's no one like him when he has a live mic and he could just say whatever he wants. And we were kind of robbed of that for his whole career. And it's really unfortunate now because the guy's in his 40s. I mean, he's a part-time guy at best now. Obviously, he's doing a lot of big movies. And that's going to be his main career going forward. He's only going to pop up once in a while. So that main part of his career is over. And we could have gotten so much more from him. And it's not even just a heel turn, but just give him some kind of edge. And they didn't do that. And it sucks because we could have seen someone that I think a lot of people would have gravitated to, like the whole crowd, the "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks" chants. The whole crowd would have been behind him, as they were here. They're all chanting Cena. They all love this version of him. And if we would have gotten to see this more throughout his career, I think that they would have gotten what they wanted. Again, they would have gotten a guy that everybody loved, that wouldn't have gotten booed every night when he was their top guy, and just kids cheering for him. They would have gotten the full package, and they didn't do that, and we didn't get to see more creative stuff with John. That freaking sucks, but, this was at least a cool glimpse into maybe what could have been, or just a cool throwback, and it was a fun little thing to see. So that was awesome. Moving on here, Triple H defeated Batista via pinfall in their no-holds-barred match. I was excited when I heard Batista was coming back. It was a hot angle when he attacked Ric Flair at first, but they didn't do anything with this building up to it. Batista's reasons for going after Triple H are freaking dumb. I'm sorry. They should have played up there's a backstage story where Batista has told us on several occasions where he wanted to promote Guardians of the Galaxy in WWE, and Triple H laughed in his face or something because he didn't think it was going to be a big hit or something like that. It would have been cool to play up that kind of aspect of the story of maybe Triple H being jealous or Batista thinking he was jealous, something like that if you wanted Batista to still be the heel. But they went with, Batista says that Triple H has been holding me down my whole career and all this stuff. We went over this stuff in 2005, years ago, and it was done very well. That's when Batista won his first title at WrestleMania 21. And beat Triple H for the world title and beat him 3 or 4 times on pay-per-view. He never lost to Triple H one-on-one. I know that Batista wanted to come back. He's talked about doing that and losing to Triple H and sort of doing the honors on his last match, so cool. The match was pretty cool. Nothing, I know I've been saying this a lot. I'm running out of words because it's so late. But nothing amazing, just a pretty good match. They went pretty far with a no-holds-barred stipulation. They ripped out Batista's nose ring with some pliers. Very violent match. Triple H got to do a lot of stuff in there. He looked pretty good. I know last time he was in the ring, he tore his pec, I'm pretty sure, at Crown Jewel. So he looked pretty good. Batista tripped coming in the ring on his entrance, and I was like, no! No, Dave, no! I was a little embarrassed for him, but he laughed it off. He got back in the ring after that. But the match was pretty good. Having Michaels on commentary wasn't that bad, actually. I actually thought he added to the match. He had a couple funny lines. It was cool to hear his insight on Triple H and Batista's relationship. So it was fun to have him there. He like I do, where I go, I do that a lot. I just can't help it. That's just how I am if I don't have a script or something. But Michaels does that a lot. And here it wasn't too bad. I saw a couple people on Twitter like, I didn't like it because, he stutters over his words like I do, obviously, again, and stuff. But on commentary for this match, I think it worked. I think the match was pretty good. Ended with a pedigree. Ric Flair came out at the end to give Triple H a sledgehammer, and it was a fun little thing. Triple H gets to keep his career and have his one more match per year or whatever, a couple matches a year, whatever. That was about it. But it was a pretty good match. I enjoyed it. So that's probably Batista's last match. And wasn't a terrible one to go out on. Pretty fun match for the most part. This one, Baron Corbin defeated Kurt Angle via pinfall in his farewell match. I think we all would have liked Kurt to face someone that we all would have enjoyed him facing off against. Baron Corbin no one likes Baron Corbin. I'm sorry, the character has not done anything for, I think, anybody. I'm not saying that Baron Corbin's untalented or anything like that. Not saying that at all, but just the way he's been positioned and, his thing with being the Raw general manager and all the stuff behind the scenes, and not behind the scenes, behind the scenes there, and he comes out and wrestles in a vest and dress pants. Like, what the heck? Whatever. Besides being a disappointing final opponent for Kurt Angle, this was a short match. Kurt looked pretty decent in there. I know he's been looking a little rough on Raw these past few months, but in this match in particular, wasn't that bad. He went for that moonsault at the end, and I almost had a freaking heart attack. I thought he was going to land on his head and break his neck again. I was very worried. But he made it all the way over, and that was the end of the match where he missed it or whatever, and he got his knees up, Baron Corbin did, and pinned him, and that was it. Kurt had a little farewell speech where he said he wanted everyone to chant the thing that epitomized his career, and they all chanted, "You suck." So, great way for Kurt to go out, I guess, for him. I wish it was against a different opponent, but Kurt's very limited in what he can do nowadays. So it was cool to see him go out. Kurt's one of the best in-ring guys that I have ever seen in pro wrestling, period. If you've never seen Kurt Angle's match with The Undertaker at No Way Out 2005, I think, one of the best matches I've ever seen. Incredible match. And he's had countless great matches with Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin back in 2001. Like, any guy he could go in with and tear it up, much like Shawn Michaels. He could make a great match out of no matter who he's in the ring with. So, thank you, Kurt, for a great career. It's been an honor to watch you for so long, and you've had one of the best bodies of work of anyone in the business. So, that's my thoughts on that match and the retirement of Kurt Angle. So we'll see him, I guess, pop back up probably in some segments, but I don't know, in what capacity he's going to be involved in WWE anymore. The following thing, the Intercontinental Championship. The Demon Finn Balor defeated Bobby Lashley with Lio Rush. The Demon entrance was really cool to see. I like that a lot. The Demon entrance is always cool. The match itself was okay. Average, nothing amazing. They had a spear spot to the outside that Big E likes to do a lot, but this time Bobby Lashley kind of took that. He had some weird contacts in. I don't know if he's been wearing those recently, but he looked weird. I thought the Demon Finn Balor was supposed to be the weird one in this one, but those eyes kind of freaked me out there. Oh yeah, powerbomb. He got him up for a powerbomb, which is awesome. It was cool to see such a smaller guy get Bobby Lashley up, who's this big jacked up dude, for a powerbomb, and then he hit the coup de grace for the win. Cool. Let's see what they do with Finn. Finn's very popular now with the Intercontinental Championship. Maybe they could raise that up a little bit, and he can defend it maybe on a more consistent basis or something, and bring that title back up to the level where Seth Rollins had it last year. That'd be cool to see, because now Workhorse has that title again. So, winner take all main event: Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships. Becky Lynch defeated Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair to win both titles. I have thoughts on this. First of all, the entrance with Charlotte coming on the helicopter like Rick did all those years ago was cool to see. I like that. Ronda came out being played by the band who plays the Bad Reputation song, and the name escapes me. I'm sorry. Becky came out. I don't think there's anything super special about her entrance, or maybe I'm just not remembering. But so, okay, a lot to kind of unpack here. Let's just talk about the match first. The match, it was a sloppy match. A lot of botches, near botches, or whatever you want to call it. Just, it wasn't a smooth, crisp match that I think they wanted to have. That kind of happens with triple threat matches, so it was unfortunate that this had to be, this was the main event of the show where they just couldn't get everything as snappy as I think they wanted to. The crowd had been sitting there for hours and hours and hours at this point. They were exhausted. I was exhausted. Anybody watching the show was probably exhausted, so the crowd was not as into it as I think that everyone wanted them to be. But it's a historic thing for the women to go on in the main event. If any year leading up to now, this was the one to definitely do it. There's been the women's evolution, the women's revolution, whatever you want to call it, has taken hold. Becky Lynch has become so popular. Ronda Rousey, obviously, is a big name that they brought in and was very popular before Becky basically turned her heel. Charlotte is a great worker and is great on the mic. She's a great character, all that stuff. So this was the year to do it. Becky won. I'm glad Becky won. They had there was a spot where the table didn't break, so I'm sure Matthew from Botchamania will have a field day with that. But the ending was very underwhelming, where it was like not a roll up, but like a crucifix pin where Becky pinned Ronda, and I'm not sure if they did this on purpose or not, but it was very obvious that Ronda's shoulders weren't down for all three slaps to the mat. So I don't know if they're going to play that up later as like a fluke or something, but I was hoping that Becky would make Ronda tap out with her submission, and they didn't do that. That would have been like the first big loss for Ronda. This is the first time she lost by pinfall, but I mean, to make her tap out would have been a bigger statement. There was a couple decent moments in there, but I think just the combination of the fatigue of the crowd, the match just not being as well executed as I think everyone wanted it to be, and that finish just made for a pretty kind of lackluster ending. I'm very happy that Becky Lynch won. I'm a big Becky Lynch fan, but it was an unfortunate lackluster ending to a pretty good show. And I'll get into my overall thoughts in a second. But leading up to the show, I want to talk about, we all know that this match should have been one-on-one. Becky Lynch going up against Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's Championship. Charlotte, I know that she is the handpicked person there. She's a great performer. And any other year, I mean, if Becky Lynch didn't catch fire, Ronda versus Charlotte should have been the match. But Becky Lynch was the biggest star in this company, period. Not just the women, the biggest star in the company. Maybe until the Kofi thing happened, and I think Kofi may have taken over popularity over Becky over the past couple months, maybe. But Becky was just so huge, and I think that she had a big hand in making this the main event of this show. And the feud, everyone was so in, even in the match when it was just Becky and Ronda in the ring, everyone was going crazy. This was the match that everyone wanted to see. There was no need to put Charlotte in there, and the match would have been better one-on-one. I think it would have been a much better story leading up to that. The couple segments that they did have without Charlotte leading up to WrestleMania were great. And it sucks that they had to do this. They had to force Charlotte in there. I think Charlotte versus Asuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship would have been great. They could have had an opportunity to steal the show. They would have had a great match, I'm sure, but they blew that early, and now we had to get this triple threat match, and that just kind of sucks. But I'm glad, at the end of the day, the right person won. Becky won both championships, so I don't know if they're fusing the titles because they only have one set of tag team championships, so are they going to do that with the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships? We'll see what happens. Or if Becky's going to defend both on both shows or something, we'll see. But I'm happy for Becky. I'm glad that the women main evented. I think this was the year to do it. I just wish it was one-on-one. It would have been so much more interesting. So that's my thoughts on Becky Lynch's win at the end of the show. So overall, was this a enjoyable show? Absolutely. This was a fun show. A lot of really fun moments. A decent amount of really good matches. It wasn't like a phenomenal show overall. If I were to give it a grade, I'd probably give it like a B minus. The highlight being Kofi and Daniel Bryan's championship match, and that moment just could not be topped. So great stuff there. I am interested to see where they go with Kofi as champion, where they go with Becky as champion. And there's a lot of stuff coming out of this show where we'll see, where they go with it, and hopefully it's in interesting directions. Rollins finally being the Universal Champion as well. There was no Undertaker on the show. I think for the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, but this might be the first time the Undertaker did not make a WrestleMania appearance since WrestleMania 2000, way back, almost 20 years ago now. So it was interesting to see that he didn't have any kind of build-up to a match or anything like that. Maybe he's recouping from an injury or something. I don't know. But Undertaker's obviously best days are behind him now. So I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't have a big farewell final match like Kurt Angle did here. So I don't know why he didn't at least make an appearance. Maybe it just didn't have anything for him, or he wasn't interested this year. So that's one thing that was kind of missing from what we're used to. But overall, a pretty good show. I enjoyed it. It's very, very long. I feel bad for the people who have to sit there for so long through the pre-show and everything. But I'd love to go to WrestleMania one of these days and do it anyway, and go through all the events and everything. I would love to do it. So maybe one day I can go to either New York or Florida, because those are the only two places they seem to have it, or New Orleans, maybe, because those are basically it now. I think the chances that they're going to come to Chicago or anywhere else are very, 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 very low. The only place that they have out here would be Soldier Field. Maybe they could pack in 70,000 people for a WrestleMania, maybe. But they want 80 plus, I think, is their big number now. And that was WrestleMania 35. So that's my thoughts on this one. Leave me your opinions on WrestleMania below. I'm sorry for stumbling and everything. It's very late. What time is it now? It's 1 o'clock in the morning here in Chicago. So thank you guys so much for watching this. Now, in terms of what's been going on, it's been a very long time since I've uploaded the video. I apologize for that. Since I uploaded that last video, Top 5 on Channel Awesome has ended. We are working on new stuff. I've been working more intensely on Fanscription. A new one just went up this past week, which is What If Ghostbusters 2 Was Better, which Rob wrote. I edited. I had a ton of fun editing that one, and got to bring in a lot of people from Channel Awesome to voice the different characters and stuff. So make sure you check that out. Also, the Fanscription podcast, which just went up, where Rob and I discussed his changes and everything, and you kind of heard his behind-the-scenes thought process about his changes to Ghostbusters 2, and how Doug was involved in the changes since they did that bit on Nostalgia Critic. And this was the inspiration for Rob to come on board with me for the Fanscription show, and we combined ideas basically and came up with the show in general. So it's fun to put that one together. So make sure you check that out over on Channel Awesome's YouTube page. I'm going to do my best to upload more stuff on here. I still owe you guys a Hey Arnold versus Dexter's Laboratory episode. Don't forget about that. My battery pack's running out. Oh no. I'm gonna go, guys. I'll talk to you later. More stuff will be up here very soon. I'll talk to you very soon with a new video. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for a very special announcement coming up soon. The battery pack's running out, so I gotta go. Bye.